Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Sending gratitude to all of you who are joining in today to accompany us down the rabbit hole of self-exploration through plant medicines. My name is Ryan Sprague, and I'm here to tell you that your frequency is now set and tuned to explore psychedelic medicines and the impact they've made among the countless psychonauts exploring the last true frontier. Buy a ticket and take the ride with me as we get true first-hand accounts of the experiences, benefits, risks, and transformations taking place within the ever-expanding world of psychedelic medicines on This One Time on Psychedelics. One of the terms I love most when I think of living a highly optimized life is the notion of thriving. To me, thriving perfectly illustrates the idea of being at your best and simultaneously knowing it and embodying that state of being. This being said, it begs the question of why so many of us only get glimpses of what thriving truly feels like in our lives, while others seem to be able to tap into this state much more frequently. Today's guest on the show is a returning guest and dear friend of mine who has made it her mission in life to guide others into their ultimate state of thriving. From her Amazon best-selling book, Finally Thriving, to her newest creation, the Finally Thriving Coaching Program, which you can join the waitlist for by diving into the show notes of this episode, it's safe to say that for any of you tuning in who are looking to bring a deeper sense of thriving to your life, that this episode will open up many possibilities for you to chew on and do just that. So please, help me in welcoming back my dear friend Allison Pelot to the show. Allison Pelot, it is so amazing to have you back with me today. For everyone listening, Allison has been on the show before. Go check it out. She's also been on the Highly Optimized podcast. And for any of you guys that haven't heard that podcast, that's my other show. It's been on hiatus for a year, but it does exist. Go check it out. We got 130 episodes out. But Allison, I am so excited to be with you here today. How you been?
I've been good. Thank you for having me on, Ryan. I really appreciate it. So good to see you again.
Yes, it's always a pleasure to see you. And, guys, for anyone listening, like Allison and I have been friends for quite a while. I think we originally met through Paul Check. He's connected me to so many amazing people. And, Allison was someone who immediately upon connecting with her, even before I met her in person, I was like, this person is exactly my flavor of ice cream. And then we got to go to that amazing workshop at Paul's and get to hang out in 3D. And it was just so much fun, So it's amazing to have you here. And I'd love if you could kind of give us, this is going to be a big question, right? So take it in any way you want, but, give us an update on what's been going on in your life over the past, let's say just year. I know you got the new program you're rolling out or doing the launch for that. There's a lot of things we're going to talk about in this episode, but give us a brief overview of some of the things that have been moving through you, kind of how your life has been shifting and what you're most excited about within that shift.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for letting me share that, because I'll start out by saying 2023 is not the year I thought it would be. It was like definitely, oh my goodness. It's almost like a screeching halt and then a turn to the over about a 180 turn. And I was really surprised by that at the fairly beginning of the year. I guess it was around like March. I just took a very sharp turn. And I believe that was because there was just more that I needed to personally integrate and work on for myself before I was going to get out in front of more people and share, my ways of integrating and getting healthy and my spiritual maturity lessons and these kinds of things, I needed to, because every time I've done this, every time I've written, when I wrote my book, when I started talking about the book, every project I've done creatively has really catapulted me into another level of integration. And so we'll be talking more about integration today, but it just really means that you are embodying all of the things that you're learning. And you're also embodying ultimately your authenticity, the truth of who you really are. We're really just getting more into that. And so in a way, it's really not so much taking in more or learning more. It's about really uncovering parts of yourself that maybe were hidden from you before. And then you get to step into more of that alignment within yourself, right? And so that's what
Definitely.
I really experienced even more on like I said, a different level this past summer. So what that required me to do was step away from some of the plans that I had for myself. And my ego self had these plans for 2023. I was going to go on a tour. I was going to do a book tour, and I was going to do a music book tour kind of thing, edutainment thing. And it was really cool. I was excited about it, but there were some things that needed to be realigned for that to happen. And what I learned was I needed to take some serious time for myself. Because I'd been helping people for years. I mean, never really giving myself a break, except for around the time of the pandemic. I did that to write the book. But right after I did that, I started in on, putting my stuff out there and doing again. And I wasn't taking the time to slow down enough to really integrate all that stuff that had happened and the way I wanted to express it now based on how I experienced myself with this new way of being. So I did that over the summer. I explored my inner self. I've been talking about this soul retrieval lately, where we take parts of ourself that have been left in these, like what I call these phantom timelines. And, they're like, they're just unresolved shadows or unresolved parts of ourself that we just reject or abandon along the way because we don't want to associate ourselves with that. But really what I learned was the magic is to acknowledge those parts of yourself and love and embrace them and bring them back into the whole, because then they become a part of you. And then the whole thing about wholeness, is bringing it all in so that you can create a whole being, a whole energy. So I was teaching that in my class. I've had 2 classes so far, and they've been widely successful. The people my students have been taking their lessons and integrating them and just and being able to apply them to their life, even though, I've been talking to them and they've had challenges still, but even though they're having challenges, they're still able to apply what they've learned and integrate it and become it so that they now can handle those things without it creating chaos and confusion in their lives. So that is my wish for everybody, is that they can come back into more of who they are and bring that wholeness into their life so that they can approach anything that way. It's not to say that we're not going to face challenges. Our life's going to be perfect. We're going to be this like 5D, everything's perfect. Actually, things become more challenging sometimes as you go, up in your frequency and your vibration. Because you are having to, what's the word for it? Like you're having to really dissipate that energy in a way that was really dense in you before and driving the car, So then we're faced with those, sometimes they're right in our face. Like, okay, are you going to still, like for me personally, are you going to still like be playing this subtle victimhood in your life just to get support in your life? Like, no, like I'm done with that. I had my last lesson with that. I was like, okay. And so then I apply that now to everything and everybody I come across, and the people that I come across, I look at with more discernment of, not necessarily judging them, but saying, are they in alignment with who I am and the things that I want to do and how I want to express myself. So all that comes from really just learning how to be you. And that's a huge thing right there. It's not real simple for most people because we've been in this, what some people call 3D matrix. Some people call it a simulation. Some people call it, other things. There's just, it's just many things like a prison planet, those kinds of things. Right. But really it's something that we do to ourselves too. So, we've had like a bit of a cloak around us, and we've had a hard time really connecting in this way with ourselves in the past. So it's been a lot more work. But as we are going into the age of ascension, which I don't know if some of your listeners have heard about ascension and what's going on there, but really that just means we're up leveling our consciousness. And we're beginning to embody these higher aspects of ourself like we have never before. So there's a lot of unknown there. It's a very unknown path to take. And now we have the opportunity to do that. But many of us, once we've been unplugged, we reach for connection because we haven't been connecting with ourselves. So instead of plugging ourselves in and also plugging our soul into us, really connecting with our soul, because those are our true connections, we try to go into these old patterns of being because we don't have anything to really fill that void. And we start trying to plug into, the outside world stuff and all these other old things that we used to do, like fitting in, people pleasing in different ways. But, that's what I experienced. And I saw it even more over the summer. So I really had to take some time to be with myself and be really quiet so that I could understand what was going on and I could move forward with more of myself intact, my soul integrated with me. So that sometimes it takes more slowing down and prioritizing yourself. And that's what we work I work with my students in my class, the Finally Thriving program. We work on really taking the time to prioritize ourselves through our daily practice every day. And it doesn't have to be anything formal, but we can talk more about that a little bit later. But yeah, I think it's so valuable to take that precious time for yourself. And if you feel like your life is chaotic, you have no control, you're trying to get so many answers from the outside world, it probably means you're not integrating the information that you need to integrate you're not taking the time to do that, right? So that is what I went through.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to take a quick moment to let you all know that the doors are officially open for the Conscious Cannabis Collective. And as such, this is the last week you can sign up and receive all of the bonuses we're currently including. This is the last time I will be personally onboarding those of you who sign up with a complimentary one-on-one session, and you'll have the ability to get the Grow with Cannabis course for free during this limited time. For more info on how you can take advantage of this offer, head down to the show notes for this episode and secure your spot today, as we only have so many spots left and they are filling up quickly. Now back to the show. Allison, That is amazing. I took some notes too, because a lot of ideas were popping through as you were talking. And one of the best ways in which I didn't make this up, someone said it's within the plant medicine space specifically, right? But one of the ways in which I view integration is turning states into traits, right? So you think about in the plant medicine space, you're shifting your consciousness, your state of being, et cetera. And that's great, right? Especially think about something like MDMA, for instance, right? Where I'm in full love. I love everyone around me. Everything is happening for me. That's great. But that lasts 2 to 3 hours, right?
Right.
So how do you actually take that state and integrate it into a trait? That's what integration really is. And there's endless different ways from which to do that, right? But what I love about your program is that you've actually boiled it down, because just like I just said, there's endless ways you could do that. And you know what having endless ways you could do something leads to? Burnout and analysis paralysis with nothing getting done, right?
Right.
So that's the whole reason where integration is the most important aspect of life. It's where embodiment truly happens, or it has the ability to happen. Because, in today's day and age, we all have more information than we know what to do with, right?
Yeah.
Think about ChatGPT, for instance, right? Just that one rabbit hole could take up your entire life, So it's okay, now that we have all the shiny objects out there and things that can distract us, et cetera, do we really need to add more into that? Or is the real process that's challenging actually subtraction, and knowing what to subtract and why, and what you're choosing to put in there in that subtraction process? And, one of the things you mentioned too is that sometimes when you start thinking about the idea of integration, it can seem really scary, right? And I tell everyone, it's like when you go on spring cleaning and you have that one room in your house that's being neglected for years, and you open the door, the hardest it's going to be is when you open the door and you really have to accept and come to terms with how messy you've allowed that closet or room to get, right? But as soon as you start working on it, then you start getting a little bit more inspired and a little bit more motivation. And before you know it, the room is clean. But I think that's what happens with a lot of us, is that we're inadvertently looking at a lot of messy closets and then not doing anything about it. And then it piles up and it becomes like extra tabs open in our metaphorical brain, like our metaphorical intranet that's a brain, right? Like more RAM getting used up, things like that. And people just don't know where to start, right? Versus understanding like, well, hey, with the right support, you can actually start anywhere so long as you're starting within that closet that you're looking to clean. If that's your intention, right, to clean a certain area of your life, well, it doesn't matter really where you start in that process so long as you actually start it, right? Then from there, you can actually create a plan, right? And I'm sure that's a lot of what you help with too. And allowing more light to come into your life, to shine into what you're really looking to become, and in order to do that, there is that subtraction process, right? Like sometimes you have too many clouds in your life of victimhood or whatever else, that trying to add other things in there doesn't make any sense. You just have to like allow the clouds to part by getting still, and then the sunshine, which is your intuition, your soul connection, etc., will start coming through and inform you so as to like maybe not how to do it, but what to do, and then we get to figure out the how, right? And that's, I imagine, what your program is so great at doing, and it helps a lot. Like, integration is literally, like I said earlier, it's like, it is where the real work begins. And I'm not discounting, the stuff that the classes people take, the psychedelics people take, et cetera. Like that can be work for sure. But all it is mental masturbation if you're not integrating it, right?
Yes.
And I tell everyone like, hey, I'm not here to judge anyone, right? But I'm here to say, if you're like me or like Allison and you have a finite body and a finite being, and you want to really be able to excel and reach your highest potential in this lifetime, well, now you're going to care about integration. If you don't care about that yet, then hey, just go use substances or go take classes or do whatever, right? No judgment. But if you are aware of how finite your time is on this planet in this particular meat suit, integration is going to be important to you, So I absolutely love what you were talking about there. And what I'll say lastly too is, and we can definitely dive into this more, like I love how a big basis for your integration framework is daily practices, because that really is what it is, right? Like I think sometimes, at least for me, I won't project it on anyone else, but for a long time, I thought that integration would be this, magnificent process. And, it'd be this thing that you did once and then you were done, right?
Right.
And, in a perfect world, that's amazing, right? But really what it is it's the day to day. It's the often looked at as mundane, but like, it's the same way as if you're building a sculpture, right? Or building like the cathedral in Rome or something. We look at that now and we go, wow, that's amazing. But you know how boring that process probably was, laying brick brick by brick.
Yeah.
But what it translates to is a beautiful cathedral,
Exactly.
So it's like, it begs the question of like, if the cathedral you're building metaphorically is important enough and inspires you enough and excites you enough, you will have the necessary why to bear the how that comes into like, okay, I'm going to do the cold plunges every day. I'm going to hit the sauna. I'm going to exercise. And all of that becomes fun. And just like the quote says, chop wood, carry water, So I absolutely love that. And I wanted to say that in conclusion.
I love that you said that, because it's so funny. I posted something about having a boring life the other day, because I think that's part of the fear, is we feel like if we have a boring life, we're going to be giving up on ourselves, or abandoning like our dreams. But really, that's the key is in the simplicity of the day to day. Like, how are you experiencing your life? How are you living your life? How are you showing up for yourself, with other people, and on your own, are you taking care of yourself? It's like all about self-responsibility, right? You mentioned the closet. If we're just in denial about how overfilled the closet is getting, and we're not cleaning it out, like doing the most obvious thing, then we're not taking personal responsibility for our growth and our life, So that's the way I also discovered that it's like, wow, how did I miss this? And it's because I was searching for this like excitement and this, something that was going to be better than just my regular, life or day to day, and where that gets you, Ryan, is it gets you to a place of finding a lot of chaos in your life, and then also a lot of confusion, and just feeling like you're always searching outside yourself for the answers. And that is a form of suffering, in my opinion, because I've experienced it firsthand. And it also does not, like you said before, it does not help you follow through with your dream, because you are taking all these side like distraction paths on the way,
Side quest.
and instead of just focusing on yourself, and so this is the thing I've been talking about lately too, is about this whole like self-sacrifice, martyrdom, selfish kind of thing. Like, we're so afraid to make ourselves number one because we think that that is selfish, and so there's nothing more selfless you can do than to take care of yourself, because what that does is it lifts the burden for other people. It is very burdensome on other people when you don't take responsibility for yourself. We all know this. We've all seen people like this. We've been those people, right? And so if we think about it like that, why are we putting ourselves off? Why are we putting the time, attention, and love, why are we putting that off for ourselves? You wouldn't do that for your child. You wouldn't do that for your partner, hopefully. You wouldn't do that for your plant or your pet. Why are you doing it to yourself? So that's where we start. So the question is, why aren't you spending time with yourself? And what are you afraid of? And that's okay if you're afraid of it. Many of us are afraid of the unknown as it relates to that. We're afraid of what we'll find there because, we stuff our emotions. A lot of times we suppress them, much like I've used the analogy, you're pushing a beach ball down in the water and it's taking so much energy to hold that ball down. But if you just let it go and let it pop up, then it's a relief because now you have more energy for yourself. You're not holding all that in your body. So if we start to learn more and get curious about this process of acknowledgement with ourselves, so we acknowledge our emotions, we acknowledge our pain, we acknowledge what we really desire in our life. And then we feel that, we actually embody it, and then we can allow it, the things that don't serve us anymore, we can allow that to move through, or things that we need to feel that we're not feeling, we can allow that to move through. And this is the 3-step process that I go through with my students. And we do this in various ways. We do this through writing, through voicing, through different types of meditations. I just give them options on what they can choose that feels right for them. Because ultimately what we're talking about here, Ryan, is that we are starting to take self-responsibility, learn more about ourselves so that we can know really what we want, like, what do you want? Not what is going on in the world, not what other people are doing. What is it that you need for you? And that's where I think we go wrong, because we get so sidetracked, especially with social media, with what other people tell us are how to do life. Like, this is how you do life. I see so much of that on social media, and there's nothing wrong with that. I understand people want to help each other. They want to make money. They also want to, be an authority in all of these things. And that's cool. They also want to express themselves. All these things are great. But what you have to do as an individual is you have to discern between what's right for you and what's not. And that's ultimately your choice. That's what you get to choose. So in order to do that, you have to know about yourself. You have to know and understand and have compassion for you and have that experience of, like we said earlier, taking responsibility for yourself, loving yourself, and prioritizing yourself that way too. And so that's what I teach in my class. Ultimately, I'm the guide, but they're really creating their own program because they're learning more about themselves and what works for them. So what is the right fit for you? Like, what's the right workout? What's the right lifestyle? What's the right, kind of diet? What's the right way to think for you? How would you prefer that? There's no right or wrong, but I think we've just been living in a world of just, everybody's telling each other what to do and how they think, because we all want to show up as authorities, but it's like, no, people are just sharing with you what works for them. That's really what it comes down to. It might not work for you. It might, but it might not. They're just showing you choices. So you have to take that in and be experiential about it. So you have to experience it in order to know if it's right. And that's what integration is all about.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And you and I see eye to eye on this 100%. There's actually a book that I have right there called, you can't see it because the camera's being weird, but it's called The Selfless Self. And this book changed my life, right? Because its opening statement is, it is the most selfless thing in the world to do, to be like selflessly selfish, right? Now, I'm not saying like selfishness as the way that we've learned it, but like, why would I ever try to pour from a cup that is empty, right? Like, and think that has honor to it, or think that that is somehow I can be proud of that or have pride around that. And when you look at, obviously these are multifaceted issues, but we'll poke and prod at a lot of these, right? Like when I look at the Western world specifically, there's almost this pride that comes from over stressing yourself out, right? Or burdening yourself with the world's issues, right? Like we see a lot going on right now when it comes to certain wars in the world and things like that. And I see people that are wasting all of their valuable energy arguing with people on Instagram. Now, listen, I'm completely a fan of being the change you want to see. I do believe that in any way you can, get involved, right? But at the same time, right, like, and go for what really matters to you. But at the same time, can we stop thinking that posting our opinions on something happening thousands of miles away is somehow going to be better for us than actually taking the time to tune into ourselves and figure out why we're getting so triggered over things, and to do our best to be the best version of us possible to heal and help heal the people that are right around us? Because there's nothing that's actually going to happen by posting our opinions on Instagram unless we have an account that has 11 or 15 million followers, right? Like,
right.
And again, like, there are so many better uses of that energy, right? Like, you could actually go into your town and pull together resources and send them over there, whatever you want to do. But at the end of the day, like, that's not helping anyone. But yet the whole entire theme around it is that, hey, it's on the news. You need to know about this. You need to know about this. And it's like, these things are just such big thirst traps,
Oh,
when it comes to this whole thing. This is how this plays into it, right? Because there's this feeling that in order to really be good for the world, we need to be giving, right? All the time. But that's the second part of the equation. Yeah, you want to be of service. But the first person you must be in service to is to self. And when I go online and I hear a lot of people saying, like the vegan carnivore thing is like the perfect, depiction of it. Like, you need to be vegan or you need to be carnivore. It's like, no one needs to do anything. Stop with the scare tactics and the fear, like putting into your posts. Say, hey, you're going to have a body that needs a specific diet. Here's a test that you can go figure out what diet works for you. That's what I recommend, right?
Right.
Because if we choose as coaches, guides, facilitators, etc., to understand that when someone comes to us, they are the expert on them, right? There's nothing that we don't need to have the answers. We don't have the answers for them because that's its own subjective universe. That's in another world that's living next to you. But if we can hear what they're saying and ask them questions that allow them to come to their own conclusions on what is important to them, which ways in which they would like to integrate that lead them to joy, then what we're actually doing is empowering them. Now, when they leave our programs and they go out into the world to do whatever, they actually have been taught how to fish, right?
Yeah.
They've actually been taught how to use discernment to discover what is truly powerful for them, what kind of people they want to surround themselves with, what they want to do for a living, who they want to be in the world, right? Like, because all we've done is ask them good questions that allow them to say, hey, Allison, this is what's coming through for me. And you go, cool, how can I help support you in following that breadcrumb trail? How can I hold you accountable? And how can I cheer you on? What's the win that I cheer you on for? Tell me what it is. I'll write it down, and then I'll check in with you on that, right? And provide the material. And I think that, the more that we can stop telling people what to do and start asking them what they would like to do, I think the better the world will be, because right now it's just a bunch of kids on a playground is what I see on social media being like, well, my mom told me that this is how you do it. Well, this is actually the best thing. You should try it. And it's just like, it's just cringy to me. Like, I'm just like, guys, if you understand hermetics, if you understand any of this stuff, it's all about empowerment. And if you are in a position where you're a coach, etc., like, it's a very humbling position, because your ego is going to want to think, dude, you got this. You know all the answers. And it's very clear to me when I can see people that are stuck in that don't even know it, So it's very interesting. And, one of the things you brought up too is, why we're all like this, right? Like, why so many of us, I won't say all, binary language, but why so many of us are like this, right? Like, why do we come into later years and start realizing, like, I still realize these things in myself all the time, right? Like, like, why are we still running patterns of victimhood, right? Why are we still, and it gets sneaky, like, it's not like, oh, you're playing a victim. Oh, it was easy to tell. Like, it's very challenging sometimes. But why is it? I think that if we look into the core values of society, we see that from a young age, we watched our parents live into the same core values, which are like productivity above everything else. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter anything. Just make sure that you get your shit together enough to go get a degree so you can become a good worker bee, right? That's the entire point, as Western society lays it out, of life. They won't say that consciously, but again, actions speak louder than words, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of us have guilt and shame surrounding actually speaking up and going, no, I don't want this. I don't want to live that way. I don't care if I have to live in a cardboard box. That, to me, like, having this like picturesque life while I'm miserable, what I'm doing every day, is not the way I want to do it. It takes a lot of courage to be able to admit that, especially when your family is trying to pull you back in, because they're also in that pattern. And many of them have lived their whole entire life stuck in that. And so to hear us at 20, 30, 40, 50 deciding to go, no, it triggers them, because they're like, how dare you, right? I didn't get to do that, so how dare you? And so we're dealing with a lot of this stuff too. And, again, multifaceted issues, right? Like, but one of the other things you brought up too was, living a boring lifestyle, right? Like, and we can shift the word boring, of course, right? But we're using boring on purpose, because what does that bring up for everyone listening, right? When you think of the boring lifestyle. But at the same time, as I can tell you, and I'm sure Allison can too, and our buddy Paul Check can, anyone that like runs their own business, there's a time where you're like, man, I kind of wish my life was a little more boring sometimes, right? Like, and I don't mean boring in the sense of what boring actually like has translated to mean, but like, there's times where I'm like, dude, I'm working 12-hour days, 7 days a week, and there's no end in sight. Like, I would really like a day where all I had to do is get up and wonder, like, what am I going to do today? Let me look at my bookshelf. What book do I want to read? Like, there's a real power in simplicity, and that's how I would translate it, from a boring lifestyle to a simple lifestyle. So I'm glad you brought that up, because until we can find the joy in the mundane, how can we really find joy, period? Right? Like,
I know
that's one of the things
secret.
that cannabis.
Yeah.
It is. It's the secret, So I'm glad. I just wanted to bring that up, because it's so accurate, and I wrote it down because I was like, ping.
Yeah. The reason I came to that conclusion, I worked with a coach for like 4 or 5 years. Her name's Hannah Beer. And she taught me a lot. I mean, she taught me everything from personal responsibility to being a better coach to my relationship with money. We went through all of these things. She taught me how to be a master of my own energy as well. And these are the things that I help my students with now. Mastering their own energy, because that's really what it comes down to. And so the topic of boring, used to be for me, like I said, like, oh my God, I don't want a boring life. That means I've failed, I mean, I'm just going to give up or whatever. But really, what that means, or what I was going to say about her is she actually said to me one day, I have quite a boring life, Allison. I don't know if you know that. And I'm like, and it caught me off guard. I was like, really? You have a boring life? You seem so successful, like you got it all together. You're an energy healer, all this stuff. It's like, wow, how could you possibly have a boring life? And then I thought about it and I was like, well, maybe as I integrated more of this, I'm realizing, oh, there's value in that. There's value in just finding peace is really what it means. Finding peace in your everyday existence. Everything you do, you're present with it. It's really creating the pure presence with everything, with every body, with everything you come across. You're noticing more, and that's living. So rushing through life, being a slave of time, is not really living if you're not in pure presence. That to me is pretty much everything. And so really just reframing it for ourselves and understanding that the real magic happens, the real excitement and joy happens in our life when we actually slow down enough to pay attention. So let that sink in, right?
Yes. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's like I've found for me that again, if we look at society, right, this productivity thing, everyone's running around. Like I've grown up in Boston, right? So like Boston and New York are kind of like the mecca for this, right? Everyone's 10 minutes late to something. They're grabbing their fourth coffee of the day, and they're not thinking about what food they're putting into their mouth or anything, because everything is just a means to an end to what can I produce and can I make enough money to be able to live in the house that I needed to live in for whatever reason, drive the car that I need to drive, right? So it's very interesting, right? There's that meme that's gone around on Facebook and probably even MySpace way back in the day, but Instagram and whatnot, of that picture of all the traffic. And it was we wake up at 6 a.m. to go to jobs that we don't like, to afford the houses we don't care about, the cars we need to drive to keep up with the Joneses, all to have no time to actually tune into the joy of simplicity of life, and that's where when you go to Mexico, for instance, right? The story of Mexico and those kind of countries is everyone's dying to get to the US, right? And sure, I'm sure there are some people that really want to come to the US, but when you go down there, they're you guys think that because we're not rich, we have life not figured out? What we get to do for 12 hours every day? We get to hang out with their entire family. I'm talking great grandparents with grandsons, right? The entire family has been kept together. They're all laughing. They don't have much, but they have exactly what they need. And they're very aware, why do I need all that stuff if it's going to take me away from this? This is the real gem. And I think that America and these other Western countries, again, I'm not dissing anything. I love America, but at the same time, it's almost like we're a teenager that hasn't yet learned the things that our parents are trying to tell us. We're shut up, you guys don't understand me, right? And then we're going to get to a point when we get to our mid 30s as a country, right?
Yeah.
And we start realizing man, I really miss having my parents around. Man, I really wish I could go, just enjoy grandma's cooking again, right? These things. And it's now we have these houses and these cars and this money. It's and that's what we crave. It's very interesting. So I wanted to throw that in there.
And that it takes what comes up for me when you say that, Ryan, is that, we've been taught for many generations that we need to hustle and strive and survive. It is a survival mode in a sense of living your life, because you're not actually able to enjoy all the things you're working hard for. Now, is that to say that that we're never going to work hard or on things that we love to do or projects that we really have a passion for? You do need to do that. You need to set time and energy towards that for sure. And also, I think it's also about that whole keeping up with the Joneses thing, what we've been taught, that this is what we should want and this is what we should strive for and this is what success looks like. But really, it's up to you to define that. And it can be so variable depending on the person. For one person, it could be spending more quality time with friends, family, being able to have more quality time for themselves, and maybe even learn an instrument or a new craft, that to me is abundance right there. Or it could be just making a ton of money, so that you have that financial freedom, and that's fine. All those things are good. But within that, I think people also need to decide and learn about what is right for them. It goes the same for the workout and the diet. It's okay, how much money is right for me? I personally make enough money for me. I love it. My income is great. And it's not like millions of dollars, but it really works for me. And in order for me to ramp that up a lot, I would have to, I look at the people who are really doing a lot more work to get to that level. And I'm not willing to do that right now. I will, sit with that for a little while and then possibly revisit that in the future and, hire people that can help me get there and to do that. But again, I have to also look at, how much of that is my ego really wanting me to reach these personal preferences in my life? Or is that really what my soul is calling me to do? Is my soul calling me to just take a walk outside right now and be in nature? Is my soul calling me to teach a class that can enlighten other people? It's kind of like you start there, because these big lofty goals are really nice. But again, it's that excitement factor. We're trying to go for these huge goals, but like, what goals are right for you? Have you actually asked yourself that question? What is your soul telling you? Have you connected with your soul about that? Because we're all like you said, we're all teenagers out here trying to get attention and get noticed, and we want to be acknowledged. But if you're actually not doing that for yourself, it's never gonna work. It's either gonna fail miserably, or you'll get a lot of attention, but maybe not the right kind of attention, or maybe that kind of attention is burdensome and it feels like it's something you're always having to work on and you never have time for yourself. There's a lot of different ways it can go, or it can just be a very joyful experience to have these people in your life that want to follow you, and you get to share your insights and your light with them. So there's different ways of looking at it. It's really up to you how you want that to happen, in a way. But again, it's also a bit of your destiny too, to tune into, to see what you're here to really do, aside from what society tells you, your parents tell you, your friends tell you, social media tells you. They're all trying to tell you who you are, but only you can know who you are. Don't let other people tell you who you are.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that I'm really grateful on from meeting Paul and other people like yourself, that I never fell into that as a coach, where I'd have people come to me and they're like, tell me the answer. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that, because that's an answer from my subjective universe. I don't know if that's the answer for you. I can give you tips. If you come to me and you're like, hey, what do you do for health? I can tell you what I do, but I'm not going to tell you this will definitely work for you the same way it's worked for me, because I don't know that. And anyone trying to tell you that is selling snake oil, and that's such a black magic thing that most people don't even know they're doing. I really don't think, because they don't understand hermetics. They don't understand quantum physics. They don't understand how the universe works. And so they're doing it from a place of oh, this is where I put, money in ads and you should too. It's well, how do you know that if you don't know their business? How do you know that they're actually going to be able to keep up with that? How do you know that it's not diminishing return? How do you know that this person's values actually aren't family or connection over success? Right. And so again, it doesn't mean that you can't be successful, that you can't work 80-hour weeks. Just make sure that's what you actually want to do.
Yeah,
right?
Because it's
not
a commitment.
What someone told you. And
it's a major commitment. You don't go through that lightly. It's something that you're devoted to,
100%. I was, do you know Eddie Madden by chance? Did you meet him in a Lifted or anything yet? I forget if you met Eddie or Shira.
Oh,
but I was visiting them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Shira does astrology and whatnot, runs her own business and does all the different things with astrology. She's super talented. But I was over there last night talking with them, and her and I were nerding out about it. How when you start your own business, most people especially based on what the intranet says, think about all the thirst traps out there, Allison, for the internet, right? I fell into them too when I first started. Hey, my name's so-and-so, and I created the business in a month, and I work from my phone, and I sit on a laptop on the beach in Tulum, and I bring in 80 grand a month. It's that shit is a lie, guys. Now, I'm not saying that someone couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But if you're a Tony Robbins or a Dean Graziosi, yeah, you could probably build a business in a month and bring in 30K, right? But do you realize what they've done that for 40 years now, and they have the network, and they actually have the team, they have all of that. So when most people think I want a business because I want to have freedom, it's okay, cool, you can get there. I'm not saying you can't, but just understand that unless you have a lot of business knowledge, you know exactly what you want to do, you have the money to hire a team and everything, there's going to be a lot of time where you have to fail forward. You have to try things without really knowing if they're going to work. You have to understand constructive criticism. You have to figure out the algorithm. You have to figure out all these different components. And it's not for everyone.
No.
And it's not like anything that is a detriment, right? Like, it's not like everyone is meant to do that, right? It hasn't been that long, that we've been building these gigantic businesses, right? Like, like a Stop and Shop or like an Amazon, like that hasn't been happening that long. So it's very interesting to see how that is playing off on a lot of people. And one of the exercises that I love to bring a lot of my clients through to kind of help them get clear on like what really matters to you is to have them write their own eulogy. Like, okay, let's imagine that you're in the grave now, right? Or you're in the coffin. Like, nothing matters. No money matters, nothing. How do you wish to be remembered, right? That will tell you everything about where you are in alignment and where you are out of alignment currently in your life. Now, does it mean you have to burn the ships? No. But it means you get to now make a plan to get yourself back into alignment, So that's one of my favorite ways to kind of just pattern interrupt people,
love that.
Yeah,
I love that. I think that we're in an age where we look at YouTubers, we're looking at influencers, we're looking at entrepreneurs, coaches, whoever. And we're thinking, oh, they just stepped into that, especially with YouTubers, like, oh yeah, it's so easy to be a YouTuber. But if you look really behind the scenes of most of those people who are very successful, they have a huge company of people working for them. They've invested a lot of money. They've invested time. Maybe they've been actors, they're in the arts, they have other skills that they've built over time to get to that place with what they're doing. And like you said, it's not for everybody. Being an entrepreneur is not for everybody. So again, like if you feel that way, then get a regular 9-to-5 job. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's really about you deciding what you want. Like if that is if you feel safer, as an entrepreneur, if that gives you more freedom as well, do it. If you feel the other way with a regular 9-to-5 job or with a regular paying job, then do that. Those are important things to decide because there's no right or wrong for each person. And one thing that I actually heard the other day, which was really interesting, I think Carrie Kay said this. She's a person that I've been in her group, the Plasma Light Tribe. She's really good. I love how she speaks and I love the things she shares. And I think she said this. She said, we're inundated with information, but we're starving for wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's so 100%. True. Like we get, like you said, we get so much information just thrown at us daily about how to live our lives, but we're never really given the wisdom to know what that looks like on an individual level. And so that's where your own self-experience comes in. You're honoring yourself. Like what we talked about in the beginning, it's not being selfish. It's actually you're honoring yourself by doing that. It's different than something like narcissism, where that's self-serving in a different way. But this is more about honoring yourself through taking responsibility, but also just being open to knowing what you don't know, having the courage to do that, taking a risk to feel pain that you might not want to feel, taking the risk to feel joy, taking the risk to be more creative and explore that. What could you be doing right now, like that you want to do that you haven't done? It's like, before I die, I want to try everything I want to do. I want to, at each phase in my life, I've had the opportunity to try something that I've never done before. And it's been amazing. And I've learned so much from it. I learned actually just today that I have to look at this name again real quick. I just want to make sure I pronounce it right. But like, I learned something about my voice because I've been exploring voice for some time now. And for so long, I was like, oh my God, I don't have a feminine voice. My voice is so low, but I can get up to these high notes, like when I'm just isolating them. But like when I'm singing, it's hard for me to kind of go back and forth and reach those notes. And so I've been doing singing lessons with Fiona for almost 2 years now and doing, getting into music and learning how to play the ukulele. And just today I learned that I'm a contralto. I have a contralto voice, which is it's the most rare female voice out there. So,
wow.
I have one of the most rare female voices, and I didn't even know it. I thought there was something wrong with my voice, and I actually have a rare voice. And I was like, how funny is that? All these, and so I say that because like so many of us, we just discount ourselves because we want to be somebody else, and because we feel like they're better than us, or we feel better than them. And so we just discount our own experience half the time. And when you abandon yourself that way, then you can never really know your gifts. So we're all searching for a purpose. We're all searching for our gifts, right? But we're not looking at the obvious, which is who we really are. We're not looking at who we are and what our gifts are. We're not even giving ourselves the time to explore those gifts and how rare our own energy signatures really are. Like your energy signature is what people feel when you walk into a room. So It's important for you to feel your own energy before you start like outsourcing your energy to everything else, right? So, and it can be quite exciting, in that way, to start looking at life like that, and much more calm and peaceful in other ways too, because you're not addicted to the chaos and the confusion in life, and trying to get, all your needs met from outside sources and all the information. You're actually bringing in yourself into yourself and discovering your own inner wisdom. And then you get to share that with other people. And then you also get to experience other people's wisdom too, with great discernment. And so that's what I think
I
the
100%
key
agree.
is. Yeah. And it's this creative exploration that we must go through with ourselves, and understanding, having compassion, having love for ourselves first, so we can have that for others. We don't always go in that order, but it is important to start there and to see how you're treating yourself first. Because it's like that. I don't know. I'm sure if you're familiar with the hermetic principles,
Hermetic principles.
Yeah, like
law of correspondence.
Yeah, so there are actually 13 natural laws. There's not just 7. But two of the laws that we really work with in the class are law of correspondence. So within, so without. So whatever you're feeling within, you're going to see that outside, in the outside world, and if you're only looking at the outside world, you're going to start feeling that from within too. So it's kind of, and then the other thing is the law of vibration. So we work with changing our frequency through the law of vibration. My voice is going out as I say that, but I've gotten so much through just like the meditation with vocal toning, and really it goes beyond that, because we take it to another level with speaking our truth, being our truth. Once we discover that, we start to experience that through our voice. And my voice, as I say that, I'm cracking up a little bit, but it's really funny. It's like ironic, but yeah, it's like what I had to go through over the summer. I guess it wants me to say this. I really had to stand up for myself in a way that it was so uncomfortable, Ryan. And it was a way I'd not done before, but my soul was calling me to do this. And I was like, okay, this is what I need to do from this, in this experience. I need to get this out of it for myself. I need to have that experience of really, truly standing up for myself, whether it pisses somebody off or not. But that was my last stand with that people pleasing and fitting in and wanting to be nice and all those things. I was like, this isn't working for me anymore. I'm done with that, So not to say that, sometimes I don't go back a little bit to that, but I'm much more aware of it now. And like now I just kind of say it's with respect, right? With great reverence, because you always want to have reverence for others when you speak your truth. And at the same time, it's really good for other people. And it sets a good example for them when you actually honor yourself that way. So
Definitely.
we work with law of vibration in different ways, through writing, through voicing, through meditation, even listening to certain frequencies and those kinds of things. But those all really prepare you. It's just all a prep for you to be more of you, and to be more comfortable being you, and to let go of the things that aren't serving you anymore. and to allow yourself to feel and not suppress those things anymore, because of, we navigate the world so much through our wounded self. And if we can start looking at how we're doing that and how much we're seeing the world through being wounded, through wanting to, like you said, with the outside world situation, there's always going to be a situation in the outside world that hasn't changed as long as I've lived. There's always been some kind of crisis going on. So like, how are you going to handle that? Like, are you going to need attention that that and you think this is wrong, or do you already know that you think this is wrong and you don't really need to get attention about that from other people? If you have your own, if you know who you are, then you know who you are, and then people will feel that. You don't need to always convince yourself of that or other people. So when you know your truth, you just do.
100%.
Yeah. You feel it, right? You feel it and other people feel it. And so that's where I'm going with this. Like, this is where we're going because we're coming into a new age. We're coming into the age of ascension. We've already been doing it for quite some time. The reason I teach frequency in my class is because the earth is raising its frequency. We have to be in alignment with it as it changes. And yes, it's going to make you feel uncomfortable at times. But again, like, we are embodying higher aspects of ourselves. And with that, the lower density aspects, the stuff that's not working for us anymore, the stuff that's keeping us blocked from who we truly are, just needs to go. Just like those clothes in your closet, right? So that's where the courage happens, because nobody really knows what's happening. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I have a lot of opinions, and I have a lot of good insights on what's happening, but nobody really knows. We're heading into unknown territory here. So all we can do is love and support each other through this process. That's really all we got here. And it starts with yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're 100% right. Like, the only way we can really do that is to know ourselves well enough to not have to project on other people, make ourselves a victim, and be those pillars that people can come to and they can express themselves, and we can just hold space and not need to think we need to have the answers, not need to think we have to have the advice for them, but just be human beings helping each other feel more safe being alive, knowing that we are all one, but still playing the dance of being separated in this illusion of separation, and I absolutely love that. I think there's never been a better time in history to be able to focus on these things. And I am so grateful that you've created a course around this, because it is so necessary right now. Like, let's just say for a second, like, can we all agree that we learned absolutely fucking nothing in school that is going to help us with anything in life? Like, sure, maybe math, basic spelling, but after about fourth grade, what did we really learn that we need to keep using every day? Right? Versus emotional regulation, nervous system regulation, taking accountability of your life, the hermetic principles and hermetics as a whole. Like, these are the things that are actually going to create a foundation from which people can live a high quality life through. So I am super excited, Allison. Where can people find you? Where can they find out more about the course? Of course, we're going to throw it in the show notes, but where can they go to, find out more about it and stay connected with you and find the book as well?
Oh, thank you so much, Ryan. Oh my God, I'm so grateful to be on your show. And it's been a pleasure and a delight to see you again and get to talk to you. You can find my book on any platform that books sell, mainly Amazon. People usually find it there. That's the easiest way to find it. I also have an audiobook that you can find on Audible. And some people really like the audiobook because it's in my voice, and they just like to listen to a book rather than read it. I've also just recently discovered my books on Spotify, and you can listen to it there too. So that's pretty cool. And finally, thrivingprogram.com, you can go there and you get on my wait list, and you will get a free Align Your Mind mini course and body meditation, connect your body meditation. When you get on my wait list, and the wait list also lets you know when the next registration dates are for the next class, which begins January 22nd of 2024. I'm very excited about this next class. I think it's really going to be good for people. We're heading into a really good year. I'm feeling like it's going to be a great year for people because we've integrated so much in 2023 but a lot has come to our awareness on what we could be working on and changing in our lives. And now I think next year we'll be integrating more of that, but also just really stepping into more of our personal power. So I really want to help as many people as I can with that, with the program. It's a really fun program. I send a module of the course each week, a certain module. We go through all the modules for aligning the mind the first 4 weeks, and then the next 4 weeks, the connecting to your body modules. And then the last is listening to your spirit. And we just go through this process of learning more how to be yourself, like being free to be you. And that's a process. And so we have to sometimes work with programs and stories. And then once we liberate ourselves from that, then we can really get to the heart of what we truly desire, we want to create here, and start showing up as ourselves. We get into alignment with our relationships. We get into alignment with our work. We get into alignment with our money and our body and our health. All of those things come together when you start doing this, when you start putting these things together. But most of all, I wanted it to be a fun and joyful experience for people. So I made it that way. And we have a few guest speakers that come in, and one is a breath worker, another is a voice work person. And so we get to do these fun practices. You get to experience them, and then you get the Kajabi app. You can just access it from your phone. So if you ever want to look at any of the modules again, or do a breathwork session, the recorded breathwork session or the voice work session, you can always go back to it time and time again. And that's how I have it set up, so that people can use the tools that I introduce them to in the course, and whenever they want, and learn how to prioritize their time with the tools. The tools are just kind of like, a practice, the practice of you being in your own energy and knowing how that feels, so that you can just, it's much more. So many people are anxious now. It's because we just aren't comfortable in our own skin, right? So when you can start being more comfortable being yourself, then life gets a whole lot more joyful and much more fun. So that's what I want to share with people. It's a very simple message. We're really bridging the gap between the wellness and the creativity in our life. And we are connecting through those things to our true self within that. So we're really finding ourselves here, so that we can show up and be the light for everybody else. That's what we really need right now. We just need people to be the light.
Yes. I love that, Allison. And I totally agree. That is literally like as simple as it can be, right? Simple doesn't equate to easy necessarily, right? All the ways in which we become the light, the shadow work, everything like that. But that is the goal, right? To be the lighthouse, allow other people to come ignite their own flame off of your flame, and allow their flame to become the beautiful, unique expression of that flame that it's meant to be, right? Not a copy of our flame, but a completely unique flame. The same way that we were able to ignite our flames off of people like Paul Chek and other mentors we both worked with. This is how it really works, right? And so I'm really grateful, guys, that, you got to check this out. You got to dive into this. If there's something that I think is really important in this conversation, I mean, everything was really important, but especially what Allison was speaking to with regards to, how to really become into your own and really allow yourself to not tell people what to do, but like she said, be that light, right? Be that lighthouse. So for anyone that is looking to connect with Allison, make sure you check out the show notes where you can find the information for her book, for her upcoming course, and all of the ways to stay in touch with her. She is a dear friend of mine doing amazing, amazing stuff, and I highly recommend checking her stuff out. If this conversation wasn't already clearly evident on how amazing her course is, definitely go check it out. And I love you guys. I hope you have the best day ever. If you enjoyed the episode, we'd love a 5-star review. And as always, may the force be with you guys to infinity and beyond. Much love. Peace.